Colleen here, and I'm just gonna real quick, because I have time to do nothing, do my kind of belated January wrap-up of, like, reading and other stuff. So the first book that I read in this entire year so far is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I had never read any Gillian Flynn before. I still plan to read Gone Girl, but my copy of Gone Girl is in storage right now, so probably not going to get down to that until I move. But I've heard also really good things about this, and it's kind of like her short, like, ghost story book. It was pretty good. It was pretty, like, confusing and very back and forth. It's kind of like a mystery thriller, and it has a lot more layers than I was anticipating. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, so it was good. It wasn't perfect, but I would definitely recommend it, especially for people who are already fans of her other works. I liked it. Then next, I DNF'd a book, which I hate doing, and for a while I had it marked on my Goodreads, but then I was like, oh, it feels wrong because I didn't finish it, and I get really conflicted when it comes to the subject of DNFing books, but that is called Zombies vs. The Living Dead, Surviving the Evacuation by Frank Thiel. It's basically I read about half of it. It's basically kind of a novella thing to this epic long, like, ebook zombie series that exists, and it's about if the zombie apocalypse broke out in an, like, old folks home, like an elderly living space place. And it kind of reminded me of that, in the first season of The Walking Dead, there's an episode called Vatos where they take care of, like, old people, and it kind of shows how that would play out in the apocalypse. So I was excited for this, and it ended up reading kind of like a copy of the final story in Stone Mattress, the anthology by Margaret Atwood, where there was, like, radical extremists trying to kill, like, elderly people in an old folks home. I kind of read like that, but bad. I didn't really care for the writing. It was boring. It was mad short, and it felt like it was taking me forever, so I was like, I can't do it, and then I just didn't finish it. Then the next thing that I read is one of the most gorgeous books I own, one of the hugest books I own, and I know, even though it's only January, that this is already going to be one of my all-time favorite reads of the year, and in general, it's my favorite nonfiction book I've probably ever read in my life, and that is Hamilton, The Revolution by Lin-Manuel Miranda. This is essentially Hamilton in a book form. For people who wouldn't be able to see, like, the show or whatever, it has pictures from the Broadway production and all that stuff. It has footnotes in the margin by Lin and how he came up with the songs and stuff, and each of the chapters is slowly how this came from a broad concept that he thought of, like, drunken one night in Puerto Rico while reading the biography that everyone knows about this. Everyone knows. How it kind of turned in from that to what it is today, like the groundbreaking thing it is today. And amongst it also has all of the lyrics in order, kind of like just going through the entire play. I listened to the audiobook of this and I read along. I mainly was kind of reading the chapters, but the notes in the margins I wanted to really listen to because it's narrated by Lin. And yeah, there's not much to say about this except that it is fantastic because it's Hamilton. I cried so many times reading this. It's ridiculous because I cry every single time I listen through Hamilton. I cried even in just the non-fiction parts where they're talking about how it came together, especially about, like, the part of them casting Anthony Ramos for Philip, and just and how it ends with, like, the whole thing of, like, the first time that it ever was, like, shown was in front of Obama. Like, I knew that, but, like, how it was written at the end, it was beautiful. It's mad expensive, so that's why it took me so long to own this, because it ended up being a Christmas gift from my sister, but I would definitely recommend this to anyone who likes musical theater, anyone who loves Hamilton, anyone who loves anything just perfect. And I loved it so much. So yes, obviously I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Then, since that is beautiful but it's huge, I kind of wanted to read something short, so I picked up a comic trade, This is Lockjaw and the Pet Avengers Unleashed. I said this in my comic haul where I hauled this. This is normally not something I would pick up. I love Lockjaw because of the Kamala, like, Miss Marvel comics, but, I'm not huge on just animal talking, like, just animals. Like, I like when there's, like, people involved and stuff. And I kind of had, like, weird conflicting emotions over this because, like, the art is gorgeous. I loved the characters, like, freaking talking superhero animals, and they all had, like, weird personalities of their own. And this, the storyline that revolves around this unicorn, whose name I'm blanking on right now, I freaking loved this unicorn. The unicorn is the reason I bought this, because I started flipping through, and I was like, there's this, like, angelic, pink-haired unicorn. I love her relationship with, like, that, Yeti Sasquatch thing. They were so weird, and, like, there's, like, a picture of them on the back, but they ended up being all, like, oddly endearing. I think I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Let's consult. Okay, yeah, so I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, weird. If it ends up being a series, I probably wouldn't read more of the series. I don't know, but, I liked it more than I thought I would. Enough to keep it. The second to last thing I read was purely through peer pressure from my mom, but this is another one of my, Christmas gifts, and it is Confessed by Colleen Hoover. My mom is, like, obsessed with Colleen Hoover, so a lot of the books that I've read of Colleen's, I've read because of her, and so we can bond over it and kind of, like, just talk about them and stuff. So I read this, and I loved it. I think that, aside from, like, if I didn't already have that personal, like, close connection that I had to November 9th, I'd probably say this is my favorite book by her. I mean, I do love Maybe Someday. She has really good books, and there's people who either adore her or physically hate her, and I'm in the former category, I think also because of my mother. Yes, and I mean, I couldn't really say much about, like, the grown-up because it's so short that you can give away anything really easily, but since this is the first one that kind of has more of a plot, I would say that this is about a girl who, okay, she's basically looking for a job. She's going through a lot of hard stuff in her life, and she ends up going to this art gallery where there are confessions, like little slips of paper where people are confessing anonymously, like, terrible things that they've thought or done in their life. And she's reading them all, and she becomes fascinated with them, and then she ends up getting a job at this art gallery, and it's kind of all of the intense drama that happens after that. It's obviously a romance. There's actually paintings because the main love interest is a painter, and the paintings are gorgeous. And I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars because there was some stuff that I kind of felt about, but can't really go into the things that I didn't like because those things specifically are spoilers. But yeah, other than that, loved it. And I'll go more into talking about this later when I get into the stuff that I watched. But yes, I would definitely recommend it to anyone who loves new adult or contemporary romance, and who, you know, like, if you've already read Colleen and hate her, I guess that's not the way to go, but if not, it was super quick, it was super, like, chemistry-driven, loved it. And then the last book thing that I've read, I also gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and that is Star Wars Forces of Destiny Daring Adventures Volume 1. And I'm not even sure, like, it's one of those weird books that doesn't really have the author name on it, I don't think, on the cover. It says by Emma Carlson Byrne. These are basically kind of, there's a cartoon show where it's basically focusing on the ladies of Star Wars. It's a very feminist-driven, Disney-esque cartoon. And, these feature 3 short stories. The first one is about, Rey. The second one is about Sabine, and then the last one is about Padme and Ahsoka, which, obviously that was my favorite one because I adore Ahsoka. I think I gave the first one, like, 4 stars because I watched the cartoon, like, multiple times that is about Rey, so I kind of was way too familiar with the story to where I couldn't get that into it, especially with the simplistic writing. The second one, loved it. Felt like there was lots of gay undertones with Sabine and her, like old friend. so I shipped that hardcore. And then the last one, obviously, even though I've already seen the episodes for it, I was obsessed with because it has Ahsoka, it has Padme, I love them. And I'm kind of like just trash for anything Star Wars. And then real quick, I'm going to go through the things that I watched. I watched 2 movies in one night in the very beginning of the year. I watched The Prince and Me, which I haven't watched that in so long. Like, I watched it in high school, but, like, I fell asleep halfway through it because we were just binging movies all night. Freaking loved that. 5 out of 5 stars. That's, like, one of my new favorite, like, rom-com movies now. Rewatched Freaky Friday that same day. And I still liked it. It's one of my favorite movies from my childhood, but upon rewatching it this time, I don't know how this is the first time I noticed how creepy Chad Michael Murray's character is, and how it's like, he like literally wanted to bang Anna's mom. And it's like, sure, it was because he was attracted to Anna's personality within her, but like, he still wanted to bang your mom. I don't think I could get back from that. Then I watched Problem Child, which is like this really old ass like movie, about like this kid who's just like a little shit. Like he's in an orphanage with nuns, and he like ruins everything, and then this family adopts him, and it's so weird. He's like an asshole, like the little kid, but like he like writes notes to a serial killer because he's like, that's his the person that he idolizes in his life and stuff. And I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. It was like alright, but like, and with Freaky Friday, I always thought of it as a 5-star movie, but I bumped it down to 4 because I was just feeling some type of way after that. Then finally, I've been wanting to watch it forever. I watched Hairspray Live, the 3rd remake, well, like the 3rd edition of the Hairspray film. I had mixed feelings on it because I love Dove Cameron. I thought she was a perfect Amber. I didn't really care much for the woman that they cast as Tracy. Maybe it's just because I have such a connection to Nikki Blonsky, but I just couldn't get into her as that. Loved Garrett Clayton as Link. Obviously prefer Zac Efron, but I loved him as that. I thought that a lot of people did a good job. I didn't care for Ariana Grande in it, and I love Ariana Grande. It's just, I'm not big on her acting. But for the most part, the costumes, the songs, the energy for the most part was just all there, and I didn't plan on watching it that day, but then I seen that it was uploaded on YouTube again, and I had a meaning to watch it, so yes, and I'm glad that I finally seen it, so I gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I went to the theater again and rewatched The Last Jedi. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm freaking obsessed with that movie. Yeah, and then the last thing that movie I watched was Simply Complicated, which is the documentary about Demi Lovato's life, and I gave that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I love Demi Lovato, and sure, it was very focused on addiction and about all of the negative things about her, but the ending made me cry, so, I mean, it spoke to me. Then shows I watched. I watched the first 2 episodes that focus on the first book of the A Series of Unfortunate Events Netflix TV show. Loved it. Gotta keep going. Caught up on The Good Place. Now I'm behind again. I need to do that again. Watched some Fairy Tale. Watched some more Supernatural and Will and Grace and Grownish. I binge watched the first season of the Descendants Wicked World cartoon because I was watching the second movie, and apparently on the special features they have the first season, and I was watching it with my little cousin, and we were just being little fangirls over Descendants, and it was great. It was like the most beautiful, pure way to enter the new year, and yeah, she's a great kid. Obviously, I love Descendants, so that was great. And the last 2 things, I watched You're the Worst, like the first 5 or 6 episodes with my sister. I love it. I don't know if we're going to continue, though, because, we end up dropping things really fast because we're both so busy, but I really liked it. It's kind of like a dramatic love story show if both of the love interests were assholes. So, I like it. And the last thing was I binge-watched the entire first season of Confess, the TV show that they made as an adaptation for Confess with my mother. And, I mean, I liked it. But I think the issue is that I read this and then the very next day watched it, so every single detail of things that they changed or that they made worse or wrong was very prominent in my head. I obviously loved the book a lot more, but I think that they did a decent job. The guy is very beautiful, and he looks exactly like Jamie Dornan, who plays Christian Grey in 50 Shades of Grey and all that stuff, so, I mean, that's nice. And I think I also watched the pilot of Switched at Birth, because the main girl in Confess is the main girl from Switched at Birth, so we decided to try that out too. And yeah, I was really digging all of that. And then the last thing, music-wise, I listened to the Hamilton soundtrack again while reading Hamilton the Revolution, and then I listened to the Hamilton mixtape again, because apparently I do that too much. That's about it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to see more of my face and my books and stuff. And bye.